Hello, everyone. Welcome to the You Don't Look Like an Engineer podcast.
We are so excited about today's guest because of her feat in so many different, well, let's call it lives that she's lived. She has done so much prior to and during her engineering career that I don't think we've had anyone like this before.
No, I don't think so. She actually wears a few different hats, and I think she's an inspiration for people within the industry that also practicing a sport and trying to balance it all out.
Yeah, and just people trying to have different hobbies that they'd really like to be quite invested in beyond, a hobby scale. Yeah. Obviously being a little bit cryptic, but if we get into it, it will make more sense.
Yes, we don't want to tell you everything, but basically today we have Margaret Gayen.
Yeah.
She is a chartered senior mechanical project engineer, and she is also experienced in gender equality advocacy, elite athletics, and public speaking.
Yeah, I'd say the gender equality advocacy and public speaking went hand in hand, which she'll explain how they got into it, her and her friend. But I suppose the unexpected thing is the elite athletics. Like, she has been to represent Australia at Glasgow Commonwealth Games. That for, again, athletics. Absolute gun. Amazing. Yeah. We're so honored to have someone like her be on the podcast. She's also awarded the 2022 Young Professional Engineer of the Year for South Australia.
Which is amazing. And she's done a lot of work with her friend Carina Nixon, is it?
I think so, yeah, for advocacy for women in this industry. And honestly, we'll link the report that's...
they worked on together.
Exactly.
Because we don't want to give it away too much, but basically she just wants to create cultural change in the industry.
Yeah, so without further ado, Margaret, could you please tell us a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and how you got into engineering?
Yeah, let's go back to probably where you were born and anything interesting that you would like to share about your childhood.
All right. Yeah, good morning. Thank you both. So I'm Margaret. I'm from Australia. I was born in Melbourne. We moved to Adelaide when I was about 2 years old, and I've got two younger siblings who neither of them are engineers, but both my parents are engineers. And so, I went to school locally in Adelaide, went on to study mechanical and sports engineering. At school, I loved maths and science. And so my parents, both being engineers themselves, were heavily supportive of me studying engineering, to the point that I was like, no, I don't want to, just because they're telling me to. And eventually I did come around, but I chose not to become a chemical engineer, which is what both of them are, because I wanted to do something different, and ended up studying mechanical and sports engineering at the University of Adelaide. I did a lot of athletics and was really interested in the sports side of things as well. And so that engineering degree is a mechanical engineering degree, but my electives were things like anatomy, physiology, biomedical engineering. So you're really learning about how to design products and clothing and just technology that supports the human body. So that could be sports equipment, but it could also be prosthetics, or it could be like car seats or just office spaces, things that are designed for human use. So it was a really interesting degree, but when I graduated, there were not a lot of engineering jobs going around. The sports engineering space in Australia is not huge, and just generally in engineering, there was a huge turn down in 2015 when I graduated with oil and gas and a few other industries. So there were not a lot of engineering jobs going around, but I managed to get a job as a design drafter at a company called Alex Medical, which designs and manufactures lasers for treating eye diseases. So I got to use this as some aspect of my sports engineering degree in that sort of medical side of things. But very, very specific in terms of designing for really, really tight tolerances. So when you're talking laser treatment for eye surgery, you want to get things right to the nearest micron, basically. So we were doing a lot of really fine design where millimeters mattered a lot. So yeah, it was really cool. I got to see projects going from, let's just throw out an idea, we want to make a device that does this and this, how do we do it, big concept sort of thing, and then slowly getting more into detailed design, and then we'd prototype, test it out, and then get it on the production floor. So the team could make lots of them and we could sell them and send them around the world. And I did that for about 3 years. And there was a lot of change in the organisation, and I decided that I wanted to try something different, learn about some other aspects of engineering. So I ended up at GPA Engineering, which is where I am now. And they're a consulting company based in Adelaide, but with offices around Australia, mainly focused in the energy industry. But as a consulting company, we do a lot of different things. My focus personally for the last year or two has been around using hydrogen in the natural gas distribution network or transmission pipelines, or even more recently in heavy vehicle transport as an alternative to fossil fuels. Oh. So that's where I am now.
That was an excellent summary. Thank you so much. Wow, you really took us from
a whole journey.
Nice storyline. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So you mentioned, just very curious, that you wanted to do the sports and mechanical side of things because you wanted to do something different to like your parents.
Yeah.
Is that a streak that's sort of like you recognize as a part of your personality, always wanting to do something different?
Yeah, I think so. Even just choosing to do engineering, there was a part of it that was, there weren't really any other people at my school that I knew of studying engineering, or that at least not people that I knew well. And yeah, whenever you mentioned it to someone as a high school student, it was like, oh, there's lots of boys doing that. And I was like, well, I'm going to as well.
I guess what I was curious about is that how you sort of ended up, doing the athletics with the engineering side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done athletics all my life. Well, I started when I was about 8, and I only stopped doing it at the start of this year. So it feels like all my life. And yeah, when I was at school, I represented the state, and then in year 12, I got selected for an Australian team for the Commonwealth Youth Games. So I was training pretty regularly by then. And yeah, having that bit of success made me really interested in the sports side of stuff. But I also wanted to keep up the academia side of things because I'd always been quite good at school in that sense, and I found that really interesting. So I tried to combine the two by going to uni and studying sports engineering. And uni was really good with that, I guess, flexible lifestyle, and being able to plot your timetable and work out when your frees are and that kind of thing. So I was able to fit training around it, and ended up representing Australia a few more times through 2012, 13 and 2014, with my biggest success being the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2014. So yeah, it was a good time, and it was really lucky, I guess. Yeah, just an amazing part of my life that I could combine two of my interests so well for that period.
So, how did you get into these sports? Sort of like, because I don't know, like, how did the athlete aspect of Margaret's life started? We now know how the engineering sort of like interest came from. But what about the sports? Do we have any sport members in your family, or any athletes in your family?
My mum did athletics through school and uni, and yeah, when we were little, she found an ad for Little Athletics in the paper and remembered how much she'd enjoyed athletics and decided to put me and my siblings into doing Little Athletics at the local club. And yeah, I just enjoyed it. So I did it every summer. We'd go down to the local oval, try out the different events. I wasn't particularly good from the start. I just had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing was that doing athletics training really taught you how to run, how to move. You learned coordination. So it helped with playing other sports as well. I saw a lot of value in it, and I had good friends there. So that's where it started, and it just kept going.
Wow.
No.
So I can't believe that you said that you weren't good at the beginning, because you ended up going to the Commonwealth Games. So wow, that is a really interesting I guess outcome of that. Do you think a lot of it was to do with how much you enjoyed it and like the dedication that you put on it?
Yeah, definitely. Like my mum had liked athletics herself, and she got into coaching it. So, my family was there supporting me, which helped. But it definitely came down to my own choices. So there's a story from when I was about 10 and I decided I really wanted to go to the state cross country championships. And to do that, I think you have to like win your school or something like that. And so mum would come to school, not pick me up, she'd pick up my bag, and then we'd go down side streets and she'd drive next to me in the side street while I ran.
That's so cool.
To train.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's pretty cool.
Oh, she's still a bit like she'd sort of call out the window like, relax your arms, or like, don't drag your feet so much. Yeah, but if I told that story in another light, it could sound like my mum was really sort of draconian, like, you have to train, but that was my choice. She'd come and pick me up and I'd run home.
That is actually a good way though, because it's like you have to learn.
Yeah, and just doing that extra bit of training helped. So I did do well at the cross country. And I think I did end up going to the state championships. And it wasn't like I immediately won the state championships and won everything. Like, I improved a little bit that year, and the following year I did a bit better. Yeah, it's very much been a slow progression, but consistent hard work and doing it because you enjoy it does count for something.
And how did you sort of like approach the balance between studying full time and doing sports, and then I guess eventually going into the workforce? Like, what was sort of like the hardest things to balance out apart from your sleep?
Yeah, sleep. Sleep's the first thing to go, isn't it? And it really shouldn't be. Yeah, at uni, it really worked for me because I could use both of them as a break from the other. Like, when you're studying, so much of your time gets taken up with you're at lectures and then you go home and do homework. But for me, athletics training was that break. It was, okay, I've studied, now I need to get out, have some fresh air, that sort of social interaction, break it up, get a mental refresh. And that really worked. And because you could sort of move your timetable around, I could fit training in around the lectures. And I think that worked quite well for me. But when I started full-time work, I did struggle with fitting both in, going to work in the morning at 8 a.m. and then finishing at 4:30, driving for half an hour to an hour to get to training, and then being at training for 2 hours, you don't get home until late, I don't know, 8:30 or something, and then you have dinner and then you go to bed and you do it all the next day. And it really was hard, and I did struggle, especially with the transition when I first started doing full-time work. And I got to say, I never really worked out the golden solution. I had a couple of years where I did compete better than others, and often when I didn't compete well, it was because of injury, but then that injury could link back to being fatigued, and that could be because I did too much with work and training, and then also trying to have a social life. So it wasn't easy, but those times when it did go well was because I had worked out how to use one of them as the, I guess, mental refresh from the other when I had enough sleep.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting that you talk about social life. Do you think was that something that you sort of had to put on hold whilst you were achieving your academic and your sports dreams?
It didn't feel like it. Oh, yeah, good question. At times it really did feel like it, and at other times I was like, no, I can do all three. Like, it's fine. But there are definitely times when it's like, oh, I'd really like to go to this particular event with my friend, but I'm going to this competition instead, or, I've got training at that time, I can't. And I think I really didn't realize that until this year, actually, because I stopped doing athletics training earlier this year, and I realized how much extra time I had.
I'm curious.
Almost too much freedom, because I was just saying yes to everything, and then I'm like, oh, okay, wind it back a bit.
It's all experimental, but I'm curious, does throughout all of this, would you say, does Margaret put a lot of pressure on herself to be the best, like in both fields, while you were competing, while you were working? Like, did you still want to be okay?
Yeah. So especially around 2018-19, I mentioned I changed jobs from the medical device company to my current job in the energy industry. Around that time, I was really struggling with this issue in particular around balancing both and wanting to do better at athletics, because I'd had such success while I was at uni. Excuse me. Every year after that, I was comparing my results to who I had been, and it's actually really tough. Like, up until that point, I'd been slowly improving every year, but at that point, I was only ever doing worse than I had done in the past, and it is so hard to, we talk about don't compare yourself to others. It is also so hard not to compare yourself to yourself. And my mental health wasn't great, because I just kept performing and it wasn't as good as I used to be, and I felt like people in the athletics community would look at me and say, oh, she's a has-been, like she used to be good but she's never quite made it. And like, no one ever said that to me, to my face. I was just imagining that happening, and that sort of self-talk gets you down. And it was really something that I had to work through and come to terms with the fact that I should be proud of success that I have had, and that I need to come back to what are my values. And to me, I value like friends, I value health, I value being outside and in the sunshine, and doing something that I love. And all of those things are still achieved by doing athletics, even if it's even if the numbers aren't great, like I'm still able to achieve those things. So there was a real kind of mental shift that I had to go through for a few years. And even this year, when I decided to stop doing athletics completely, I felt like I'd really had a go, and I was proud of that, and I'd been able to enjoy what I'd done. And then I decided that, okay, I've done that for now, and I can continue to do the things that I value, like exercise and being outdoors and hanging out with friends, but it doesn't have to be through athletics. It still feels pretty big, actually, after 20 years of athletics. But yeah, that's been a real journey, and it's because of exactly what you talk about with that kind of trying to hold yourself to high expectations.
Wow, I found it really interesting because I'm trying to sort of like understand how it might have been for you, because at the start it started with something that was taking your mind off things, and then with this transition it became something that was like too much for you to handle mentally. Wow, that's really nice that you say that a good way to sort of like go back on track was to focus on your values. That's a really good solution. I feel like I can relate to that in a different experience. So wow, thanks for that.
And it makes for such a good chapter.
Yeah.
So I guess the next really cool thing we wanted to talk about was the Engineers Australia Award.
Oh my God, yes. So, Margaret, yes, tell us a little bit about how did you feel when you were nominated, or how was the process of the nomination, and what was it? How did it feel like to receive such an award? The Young Professional Engineer of the Year in South Australia, by the way. She's really big.
It was, it's a huge honor. So my previous team leader, Hugh Dent, he nominated me earlier this year. And I just found out when I got an email from Athletics Engineers Australia, asking me to fill in a nomination form with like my CV and a photo. And I was like, what's going on? And I guessed that Hugh might be involved or might know about it. So I sort of confronted him and was like, what's going on? And he was like, yeah, I've nominated you because I think you're doing some cool stuff. I was like,
that's so sweet.
So yeah, I went along to the awards night and I was chatting to other award nominees, and I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how they separate the nominations. Like, there's so many different types of engineering and just impressive people doing cool stuff that's not just their job, but also beyond that. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I'm really honoured to have been named the Young Engineer of the Year for South Australia. And then obviously to be able to go along to the Engineers Australia Awards for the national competition as well and be one of the finalists there. And I get to meet the other finalists and Deanna Hood, who is such an inspirational girl. Yeah, she's doing won the national award for Engineer of the Year and doing awesome stuff in the space for inspiring young women into STEM. So it's just, in some ways, I think the best part of it has just been meeting other really inspirational, powerful people. Yes.
Yeah. Was your team leader aware of the work that you had been doing for the report that you've been writing with Carina and the presentation? So when did that sort of like started? And let's talk a little bit about it for now, because I really want to ask more questions about it. But I guess now that we're transitioning to it, like we can bring it on.
Yeah, so I think the award was for a couple of reasons. Like there's the sort of technical engineering side of things where I've been heavily involved in new research and studies for the emerging hydrogen industry. But I think a lot of it was around this gender equality work that you're mentioning, which started probably a year ago, maybe a bit more, when I had a few conversations that made me realize that some of my colleagues who are, like really supportive, great colleagues, didn't understand or didn't see my perspective around women in engineering experiencing bias and discrimination and harassment. Whereas, like, yeah, I've had, a really good career, especially compared to a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I haven't experienced gender bias. And like my colleagues were really surprised by that. That my colleague Carina, who wishes she could have joined us here today, but is unfortunately busy with work on site. Carina and I were chatting about this and realizing that we had quite a few stories around that gender bias sort of thing. And we decided we wanted to share them with our team, especially because we found that the disbelief around this gender bias it wasn't malicious. It wasn't that they were gender biased themselves, these colleagues, but they just were ignorant of it. And so we're like, let's start having these conversations. If we talk about it, then they might be able to recognize it. So we did a presentation just in our team, talking about some of the things we'd experienced and just highlighting some things for our colleagues to think about around what bias or discrimination might look like if they were to see it in the workplace. And then we held a Q&A at the end and had some really valuable conversation where the guys, mostly guys, could ask questions that they might otherwise have felt like they couldn't ask, because it can be a bit of a taboo subject. And it was a really positive conversation. We had some good questions and they wanted to know more. So we ended up doing the presentation again a few months later for the whole company, which is, I think we had over 100 people call in for the meeting, for the presentation, and again had a really valuable conversation about just, things that people wanted to know about if they see something gender bias, how to call it out, and what they could do to help. As well as just like the presentation itself initiating, I guess, reflection for a lot of people, just about whether they've ever contributed unknowingly to these kind of environments. And it sort of had a ripple effect from what I can tell. And certainly my team leader saw this and was really proud and inspired. So that's why he decided to nominate me for the award. At that point, we hadn't done the industry research. So that part actually wasn't in the engineering award nomination. So this presentation that we will talk about shortly. That's all come since.
That's incredible. Sohan and I were recording one of our episodes, the ones that we talk about like just certain topics, and the ones that we do the two of us together. And we were talking, we like talking about females that have achieved really amazing things in the STEM field, or that have just achieved so much through history. And we were talking about Mary Curie. I hope I'm saying her name right again, because it's very difficult. And her husband was very supportive of her whole like discovery of radiation, or like all the discoveries that they did together, right? And when he was nominated this Nobel Prize, he was like, hold on, let's recognize my like Mary, because she's been helping me. And I guess I bring this up because it's so important to have men that help us and encourage us to sort of like that encourage us to sort of like continue working on what we do, or to see how good the work that we're doing is in this field. It's so good to have the opposite gender supporting us and making us realize that the work that we're doing is creating a difference. And I found that especially with gender and diversity and inclusion, it says a lot when you have that type of support, because it's just amazing. It's really good. I'm really happy that you had a team leader that nominated you, and especially saw that this type of work as something that he can sort of like help you guys make more visible instead of feeling threatened by it. So
Yeah,
that was really
definitely.
good.
Yeah, it absolutely, men need to be in these conversations. And that's not just supporting women, but also, like, from the research that we did, there's plenty of men who have experienced gender bias or harassment as well. And so, yeah, this isn't just a female problem.
It is a people
everyone problem. Yeah.
Wow. So after this recognition that you received, what aspects of Margaret have changed? Like, how could you describe a little bit of the differences on your behavior and the way you carry yourself, or even like in the profession?
Yeah, just how people interact with you, I guess.
Yeah, good question. Not that much has changed, really. I guess there's a bit more sort of self-confidence for me, and having recognition for work like this helps remind me that it's important. There's, for all of the supporters, there's one or two naysayers who are saying, oh, this isn't important and it doesn't matter that much, you should be spending time on other things. And so getting recognition for this is like, that helps me forget those people, or at least just say it doesn't matter to those couple of people, but it does matter to a lot of people. So it's kind of good motivation to keep going.
Wow,
that's pretty sick.
Incredible.
I guess if we can just go back to like the industry research part, how did you think of getting that, and that you would get such a response? Were you expecting such a big response, like from, because I believe you said you'd like done like a questionnaire, right?
Yeah, so we never set out to do what we did. What happened was, we did this presentation to our team, and then we got an email about this convention, an industry convention in September this year, but this was early this year we saw it, and we're like, oh, we've just done this good presentation, maybe we can do something like that at the conference. And so we submitted an abstract which was loosely based on our presentation, just to see how they'd respond, because we knew that this convention, it was the Australian Pipeline and Gas Association convention, we knew that most of their presentations are on technical topics, and certainly in the past most of it's about like pipeline integrity or projects or things like that. And we're like, what will they do if they see an abstract come across their desk that talks about gender equality? So we're just like, let's see what happens. Anyway, it got accepted, and not just accepted for a small side room slot, but as keynote, as a keynote speech.
Amazing.
So after we experienced that shock, we were like, oh, well, we better work out what we're going to talk about. And because our presentations to our team had been so personal, we'd used a lot of our own stories. We kind of sat down and had a chat, and we're thinking, like, we could share our own stories, but this is to the whole industry, and we don't want them to dismiss it as just, oh, two young girls are complaining about things. So we wanted to find out some other stories, basically, just collect some more, so that it wasn't just us. We could say, here's a few things that we know from people in this industry. So we just brainstormed a bunch of questions, things that might have happened to people, and we made a survey that said, basically, there were 15 questions, but they were asking things like, have you ever had someone mistake your identity, your gender? Has anyone ever assumed your skill level because of your gender? Have you ever experienced harassment because of your gender? And like a lot of different things. And it was, if you have got a story for any of these things, can you tell us what happened? Carina said to me at the time we sent it out, if we get 20 responses, we'll have done really well. we got 130 responses.
Holy moly.
And in that 130 responses, we had over 950 stories about gender bias, discrimination, or harassment.
Wow.
So we were blown away, really. We were not prepared for just the amount of interest, and also just the depth of these stories. Like, some of them were really hard to read. But at the same time, we got support from places that we hadn't really expected. Like, the CEO of APGA, Steve Davies, was sharing our survey on his platforms. We got support from people within our team and from other companies sharing it within their companies. So, we knew this had become a lot bigger than anything
And that
we'd
puts a
originally
whole
planned.
different level of responsibility now that you have these stories that are so, like, you know, personal and heavy and difficult to read. How do you manage presenting that in a way that's, you know, giving them respect sort of that they need?
Yeah, and that was also really something that we had to navigate. We ended up, so we wrote a report that basically just listed the stories as we'd received them. The only edits we made were to remove any identifying information. If someone had provided a story where it referenced their company or names or anything, we edited that out. But otherwise, we provided the stories as they were sent us, and our report was just collecting those stories into themes. But what is in that report just comes from the voices of the people who answered our survey. And then, when we presented it at the conference, it was similar. The focus of our speech was around those stories and getting our audience to understand it as if it was themselves. Imagine themselves in the shoes of someone who experienced a number of these things in a row. And some of them are minor and some of them are not minor, but they all kind of add up to one big experience.
Yeah.
And I think it
I
had
really
ended
like
in
this.
standing ovation. Sorry, hadn't it? Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
it
good.
did.
Yeah, Laura, sorry, I cut you off. Yeah.
All good, Sohan, all good. I was just saying that I love the fact that you, through this exercise, are like pretty much teaching people how to be a little bit more empathetic. And I feel like that is one of the things that we're missing in this industry and probably in today's world, like in society. It is it's very important that you, through this storytelling, are helping people to be able to put on other people's shoes. And that's why we need to change this issue and to change a lot of societal issues. So thank you so much to you and Carina for doing that. We have the report available in our link. And we also have your presentation because we want everyone to hear it. Everyone needs to listen to you and read through those pages because it's so good. It has all the questions that you guys ask in the survey, and it has recommendations for companies of suggestions to things that they could be doing. So I really encourage people to have a read through and really get to understand what Carina and Margaret have been doing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. It's that storytelling aspect. I just wanted to talk about that because I had been feeling for a while before this all started a sort of low-level frustration, but I didn't really know what to do with that motivation because people kept talking in terms of statistics and around, we've got X number of women in the workforce and X number of women experience sexual harassment and all this number of, but it's so hard for us as individuals to engage with a number like that and it mean anything because if we haven't experienced it, then it's like, oh yeah, but you know, if 1 in 4 experience sexual harassment, 3 in 4 don't, and like that's all right. But as soon as you start hearing the stories of this is not just a number, like this is what happened to someone that I have spoken to or that is in our industry that we work with, that really hits home. And so, yeah, that kind of actual let's talk about what's happening. Let's not just hide amongst some statistics. Let's say this is what's happened to me, or this is what's happened to someone else here.
It's so true. It's like it's a lot harder to care about the whole population, but it is a lot easier to care about, you know, okay, oh, so it was Margaret who I talked to last week, and that's insane that this should happen to her. Like, she's so lovely, that sort of thing. But from like a men's perspective, you talked about, you know, the men experiencing this as well, you know, the discrimination and the bias. Do you feel like their ability to voice it or work through it is the same? Or do their other struggles sort of similar in not being able to, you know, report it, come out with it, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because initially we sent the survey out to women, and then we thought we shouldn't be. And we started sharing it with everyone. And we did start getting back stories from men as well. And the rates of gender bias and harassment are a lot lower for men, but that doesn't mean they're zero. And I think that's really important to talk about, because, you know, we need men in this conversation to, like, even if you're only looking at the female problem, when there's so few women in our industry, we need men's voices to make it be heard. But then also let's be open to the idea that men have problems too. And, you know, it's really pertinent on International Men's Day today. That we do accept that men experience problems with being able to talk about their emotions. Like, one of the biggest stereotypes that came up in our study was that one around women being emotional but men not being allowed to be emotional. Let's all just, I guess, stop limiting each other because of our genders.
Yeah, it's a matter of like human rights again. It's like you are allowed to express your pain, you're allowed to express your opinion. It's all like, regardless of what you consider yourself to be. It's like, wow. How do you, so with the work that you have been doing, how have you been able to sort of like engage with people that still don't see this problem as a problem? How do you talk to them to sort of like show them your point of view, but whilst respecting their point of view?
Yeah, that's it's a challenge, because especially with the amount of work I'm doing, I'm like, it's definitely a problem.
Yes, it is in there, in our eyes, in our face.
But at the same time, it's true. Like, other people have different perspectives, and we need to respect that. So I found that the best approach is to just ask questions, to be just honest about, oh, that's not how I see it. I'm just wondering why you see it differently. And there's been both success with that, but also other people I haven't got anywhere with. With a few people, it's, you know, I've shown my perspective and talked about the stories that I've received, and they've gone, oh, like, I was completely blind to that. I didn't know that. In fact, I had a chat to a woman before my presentation who said, oh, don't talk to me about feminism. Like, I don't see it as a problem. But she came along to our presentation, and afterwards she said, oh, after your talk, I heard someone say a really sexist comment, and I realized that's what you're talking about. Like, now I see it. And I don't know if I just ignored it before, but now I see it's there. And I was like, this is what we're talking about.
So I just want to clarify for the listeners, to be honest, because I guess it's different hearing that, you know, women are oblivious to this as well. But you just say that there's a population of people who genuinely think things are exactly the same for men and women, that there is no issue whatsoever.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
Or they think that there's a difference, but that difference should be there.
and I understand. So scientifically speaking, I would say yes, that difference needs to be there. But what we're talking about again goes back to human rights. And that should be horizontal. That should be equal opportunities. But I was gonna say there's a few women or there's a few individuals, let's just remove the gender here and talk about people that having those beliefs or being so oblivious, which is the word that we're using, serves them a purpose. It's like self-preservation mode. Like they don't want to address it for a reason. So yeah, I don't know how to unpack that one, but I might need your help.
Oh, look, definitely. I had a conversation with my mum early on when I started having these conversations at work, sort of talking about how I'd raised it. And she is a female engineer, obviously previous generation, and had to really sort of fight for her space in the industry. So, Mum, if you're going to listen to this, I don't know, but I'm completely calling her out on this one, where she was kind of saying, like, don't make a big deal about it. Like, if someone says something sexist, just call them out at the time and then move on. Like, that's just how it is. But yeah, don't engage. And I was like, oh, look, yes, but no. Like, I can talk about things. I can try and change things, and I want to. And so, yeah, we didn't really see eye to eye on that, I think, because she was still in this mode of like it was, for her, it was self-preservation. And at this point, it was her wanting to protect me. But we are lucky, or I am lucky, to be in an environment where people will listen to me when I speak up about these topics. And I mean, I recognize that privilege and I want to be able to use that. And I guess Mum has since come around to the idea that I am not just going to lose my job or lose respect or whatever because I'm making a fuss about sexism. Like, now she's fully in support. And yeah, so there's definitely different approaches to this because of people's different experiences.
And I think what you just said before, you touched on a really important subject, and is that you won't lose your job now if you make a big deal out of it. And I think the fear back on the day, and that we have been able to sort of like remove, is that we can talk about this without losing our jobs. Because if I was to speak up about my experiences and then I lost my job, and in today's society, with the prices of food and everything, no one wants to lose their job. And having a family and everything is like, no, I'd rather just stick through it or put a blind eye to it and just keep my job. So it does make sense. But as the saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I think it is, or something.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't say these things, there's no change happening. No one is going to be aware of it. If we don't share the stories we are sharing with your report, with your presentation, with this podcast, then no one is going to. And the things are going to just continue to be the way they are. And probably the change is going to be happening, but slower. Yeah. And I feel like both men and women benefit from this change happening quicker. We open opportunities for everyone. So definitely.
And certainly I can see change already within our organization. Like, don't get me, I don't want to represent GPA poorly. Like, they've been a really great company, but until I started doing these presentations, we didn't have a standalone diversity and inclusion policy. Now we do. More broadly with the industry, they recently approved a grant to do more research into gender equality, but also the obstacles that are in place for people, well, especially women, in terms of joining the industry and then progressing in the industry. So yeah, there's change happening because we're talking about it.
Yeah, something interesting on that note. I agree. There's change happening, and especially with, like, for example, paternity leave policies. I've the organization that I that I'm part of picked up on the fact that the policies were different for females and for men, and then just by doing that, we are sort of like promoting a difference. It's not equal, so they are sort of like changing the policy so men and women have the same amount of time, because that is challenging. Sorry, that goes and challenge the who is the caregiver sort of concept that we have always assumed that the caregiver is the mother. But in reality, we're going to challenge all of this is like, no, the parents and like the fathers can also be the caregiver. So just by creating this type of change through policies and all of this is really important. It is happening. We're not saying it isn't.
No, it's not easy. Sometimes it is really emotionally draining. But yeah, slow progression. There is change, which is motivating.
Do you feel like you've just become not just become, but like, do you feel like now that you've done all this work, you and Karina have sort of become like the face of diversity, inclusion, and like, feminism at GPA? Like, is that sort of the perception that you get now?
Yeah. Not just at GPA, within the whole pipeline and gas industry.
That's amazing. Good on you. But it's rewarding. It's a really rewarding experience. And like, you never know, like maybe in the future they'll talk about you and Carina, and I'm pretty sure they will. And they'll be like, well, look, they started it. And that's a legacy that you and Carina have left, not for you and your children, or if whoever, like you, if you decide to have children. It's for everyone, for all the females and for all the men as well, because it's something that you guys have created for individuals. So it's really good. You should be proud of yourself. And I'm sure you are.
She did say self-confidence has gotten better.
Yeah, good. And I think that is great that that was sort of like the outcome after that reward, because it is important.
Yeah.
One thing before the lag kicks in. Okay, I'm really curious.
I was like, should I go?
Sorry. From your perspective on all this, like, I suppose, insight that you have now, what would you say you think the solution looks like for women in the industry? Is it an equality in numbers? Like, do we eventually reach that stage where, we're all like the same amount, 50-50, everything's great? Or do you think we'll achieve a balance only when there's equality in how we're treated? I don't know if that makes sense.
Great question. I find this really hard to sort of say there's an answer, because if we don't have, like, if we bring more young women in, but we're still treating them with the same gender bias and harassment and discrimination, then we're going to lose them. Like, we already see a huge loss of women around the age of 30 because they start having kids, they leave for a year and then just decide not to come back. And really, like, so, they get to the point where it's like, why would I bother? Because I keep experiencing this stuff that's just a little bit hard, and I want an easy job while I deal with young children. So yeah, we've got to make it an enticing sort of environment, at the same time as bringing more women in. So it's like, it's chicken and egg. Which one do you solve first? I think it has to be both at the same time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like I say, unfortunately, just because that's hard, not because, like, I think it would be awesome for us to be able to build up the numbers of women in the industry, but also, like, at the same time that happens, because there's more women in the industry, there will be more support for women. And I think there'll be less of this, like, man dominated culture, that, like, what am I trying to say? There's because it's so significantly male dominated, it makes it hard not just for women, but for men who are more feminine or people who don't identify as male or female. So as we bring more diversity in, I think it helps with the inclusion side of things. And hopefully that then contributes to everyone feeling like they have an equal opportunity, they're equally respected, and, can have equally satisfying careers.
Ooh. What you said at the end about the cultural, about having such a strong male-dominated culture. I read the report that Engineers Australia wrote about gender inequality. I think it was diversity and inclusion. I'm not entirely sure about the title, but the latest one that they created. And one of the they highlight different problems for this I guess disparity in the gender. Oh my god, guys, completely lost. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, they highlight a couple of issues to the disparity in numbers for females and males in the industry, and the main one is the fact that it is a very dominated male culture, and that no one feels like they can fit in. So it's really hard, as you said, if we're going to bring more women into it, we have to start changing from above, from literally the positions that are probably really high up, because that's one of the biggest drivers of the culture in a company at the end of the day. We all make a part of it, but
just when you're talking about leadership and that sort of thing, this sort of push for more diversity at the top, I think, is really valuable. But at the same time, I took a lot of, hope from when we did our presentation at the conference. We had a lot of senior leaders present at our talk, and then also following up with us about wanting to continue these conversations.
that's really
so
good.
I think, you can be the stereotypical old white male, but that doesn't mean you can't be part of these conversations as well, and can't be an ally. And that they might have their own diversity story that, for whatever reason, means they can contribute something as well.
That is really, really true. Well, I think the last question, going back to sports, that I have is, what's your favorite team memory from your time when you were in sports?
I don't know if it's a team memory, but my favorite memory from my athletics career is at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, where it was my last jump of the final, I think, and for some reason, it just lined up with there being no track events. So I was on the long jump runway, about to do my last jump, and there were no, normally the field events are happening at the same time as the track events, and the track events get all of the attention.
Yeah.
But they weren't. And so I was the only one competing in the stadium at that time. And
Wow.
the cameraman appeared, and my face was on the big screen, and I had everyone in the audience was watching me, and there's 40,000 or more people in this stadium. And I decided to start a clap. So some athletes do this, I don't always, but in this particular instance, I was like, this is too good of an opportunity to miss. So I started a big slow clap, and the people in the stadium started clapping too.
Yeah.
And you could hear it as more and more people around the stadium joined in. And then I was just I felt so many goosebumps, just so much adrenaline. I've never been so high on adrenaline.
Wow. How cool.
Oh, that is incredible.
That moment just chills.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I had to go and jump, and I was kind of too buzzed, and it actually didn't go that well. But that moment of being buzzed before the jump, that was awesome.
Whoa.
That's crazy.
I
I
can't
wonder
even
if there is
imagine.
any footage of that available on YouTube.
Maybe.
Probably.
I've got bits and pieces. To me, it felt like that moment was so long, but the bit of recording that I've seen sort of suggests that it was only a second.
Wow.
I don't
Just
know.
was magnified.
But you know, a second can make a big difference.
Exactly.
If we learned something today.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these amazing stories about yourself and about the work that you've been doing with Carina. It's always good to see you.
Yes.
We have the
Always.
pleasure to meet you in person, and
Yes.
good to see you again.
Thank you both for having me. It's been awesome to talk about this and to support your really great work in talking about these things. Love what you're doing.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Margaret.